Yo! What is good, Sixer Nation? Welcome back on in to another edition of Philly Take with RB. We're coming at you live, Sixers camp in Colorado, day 2. The drama gets spicier and spicier. James Harden is officially back. What does it mean for the team going forward? He practiced today. He was there. The staring contest, Daryl Morey and James Harden. They might have to box it out or something, man. He actually showed up. We're going to break down everything you need to know from day 2. I was like, should we do another video like yesterday? Nah, man, we had to go live for this one. This one's going down for the ages, man. James Harden's back. Sixers are back. We're in full effect, man. Welcome on in, Philly Take with RB. Appreciate you all being here on a Tuesday evening. Phillies play tonight. Go Phillies, Red October. But before we get to the Phillies, we have to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers because, my gosh, I mean, you want to talk about deja vu. James Harden, after a long summer of beefing and feuding with Daryl Morey and the Sixers, decides to show up to practice today like nothing ever happened. And we'll talk about what this means and how this team should proceed forward. We have reactions, we have quotes from Nick Nurse, from Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, etc., etc. So welcome on into the show. Thank you all for being here. Do me a favor, man. I know there's a bunch of people out there right now tuning in, probably just got done work. I hear you, man. Drop a like on the stream. Subscribe to the show. Ring the bell. Don't miss any of the coverage. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring tonight's show. A new sponsor, aka a former/new sponsor of the show. They're locked in all season with us. Shout out to BetUS. But man, it is about to get insane as it relates to the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't care what anybody out there says. Despite all the drama, man, this team always finds a way to get you interested. They always find a way to get you hooked in. Yo, it's going to be crazy out here, man. I'm telling you right now, we're bringing you the coverage live and direct, and we have a lot to go over. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I see some members in here. If you guys want to support the show another way, you can always become a member. You can always drop a super chat. There's a lot of ways to support the show. All the links are down below in the description. Shout out to Speed Demon in the house. Jadarius, what's up? Tim Starr, Steve Launchner, what's up? Daniel, Side Eye, what's up, everybody? So today was day 2 of Sixers camp, and James Harden returned. We got a notification this morning from Adrian Wojnarowski. We'll take it through the timeline here that James Harden was going to participate in Sixers practice today. We heard about it yesterday, but it was confirmed today. He showed up, probably got done at the club on a Monday night, hopped on a jet, went out west. Altitude was probably kicking, and he said, I'm here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, instantly, since last night, I'm just cycling through the thoughts. I'm thinking, are we about to get another Ben Simmons situation? Are we about to get another Ben Simmons situation where he comes in and he's disruptive and he's lollygagging and he doesn't care and he gets kicked out? What's going to happen? And then we get these pictures from the Sixers. Elevated practice. Elevated with the altitude. But you know what's funny? They don't act like anything happened. You see Joel Embiid. You see Maxey. This is Tobias right here. And look who that is. Look who it is. James Harden showed up at Sixers practice today like the last 4 months didn't have it. And you know what's crazy? I told you, I sat up here and I told you he was coming back. Why? Why did I think that? Because when you are constrained, when you are trapped in a corner, when you're in the burning house and you have nowhere else to go, You're going to have to jump eventually. You're going to have to bite. It was a staring contest with Daryl Morey and James Harden. Both parties are in a bad situation, all right? James Harden still wants to get traded. But he came back because he had to. Because the Sixers can block him from playing basketball if he sits out. Because James Harden opted into $35 million. And he said, I want to get paid. I want to get paid. So I'm going to show up and go back to practice. Man, that must have been awkward. That must have been awkward for everybody out there seeing him show up. What's up, James? How are you? But anyway, let's talk about what happened. So James Harden practiced, and to a surprise, he actually didn't make any issues. So, yes, I give him a little credit for coming back. He didn't speak to the media, but he did one-up Ben Simmons because he didn't come back and act like a fool and mess up the chemistry. No, he came back and he handled business. He probably only said a few words. He probably only said a couple things, but at least he didn't cause a distraction. And that is at least a step in the right direction. Malika Andrews put this out, couple other pictures, but wait, I want you guys to look at this one. I want you to look at this one. Because here's James Harden at practice, and I don't think you can see it here. Hold up, let's see if we can move this one out here. Let's see if we can move this out. And if you zoom in on his shoes, you probably can't see it in this photo, but what does it say on his shoes? Somebody had zoomed this picture in, and it said something to the effect of, no excuses, just perform. No excuses, just perform, just show up. You think, James? You think? Looks like he's here and ready to go. Looks like he's locked in and ready to say, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. And then we get a video from Believe in Sixers. And this is the first video that we got. The first footage of James Harden. But wait, he wasn't on the floor. He wasn't on the floor. Guys are practicing. This is Colorado State. Look who's down here. Look at this. Is that James Harden? Is James Harden running with the twos? Guys are moving around. Hold up. There's James Harden. What's going on? He showed up, said, Nick, I'm ready to play. Nick said, nah, you're running with the twos and threes, my guy. He said, you're running with the twos and threes, James. You just hold on a second. By the way, going back to the first picture. What do you guys think? Does he look in shape? Has James Harden been working out? Everybody thought he was going to come back 350 pounds. He looks kind of good to me. Looks like he's been working out. Looks like he's in shape. Okay. All right. Interesting. But yeah, so we see that video, and then Austin Krell posts this video. He's one of the reporters there. And he says, Harden not here post-practice when the media was let in. So there's the guys chucking up some shots after practice. We have a lot more footage today. No James Harden in sight. I think this is a good idea. I don't think James Harden should talk to the media. Look at that. Cashing a three right there. I don't think James Harden should talk to the media because that's just not a good idea for both parties. I didn't think he would talk to the media. I thought if he did and came out and said something outlandish, could have made it 10 times worse. Or he could have apologized, which will never happen with James Harden. But he went to practice and then he got the heck out of there. He's not talking to anybody. And it's probably the better decision today. What do you guys think about that? Kenny Smith with the $5 super chat says James Harden can't afford to show ass. He's too old and he needs to play well enough to garner interest from teams at the trade deadline. Yeah, exactly, Kenny. He finally came to the realization that there's only a certain timetable where I can hold out. If I continue to do this and I continue to try to play this long game, the Sixers just won't care because they can still be competitive And nobody else really wants my services for what I want in terms of a contract. So eventually I'm going to have to suck it up and try to make my way back. Daryl Morey made the first move a couple days ago. He said, we're not trading you still, right? Unless we find something that works for us. So we're expecting you to show up. And it's funny, he didn't come to day one. He comes to day two. He comes out to day two of camp, not day one. Interesting. But at least James Harden didn't have a phone in his pocket. At least James Harden didn't show up and tell Nick Nurse to shove it. We'll get to some Nick Nurse quotes in a few minutes, but Harden was apparently compliant. And he did his job, whether he ran with the 1s, 2s, or 3s. And yeah, they said he came determined, ready to play. Don't know how much he talked to his teammates. They asked a couple people whether Harden should address the team or not. They all said no. You know, he's a grown man. He can do what he wants. It's a very awkward situation. It's not fair that the teammates have to continue to answer to things like this. It's not really fair that the teammates have to continue to come out and say, oh, well, we don't know what's going to happen. We're just here trying to do our best, et cetera, et cetera. What do you guys think? Will James Harden be on the Sixers roster opening night? Will he be there? What do you think? Should the Sixer fan base trust James Harden after everything that has happened? I don't know, man. I don't know. It's risky. It's risky. Everybody in the chat, hit the like button right now. Let's get this to 100 likes. We have Tobias Harris, who was asked about James Harden. We still don't have any Embiid footage, which is weird. But Tobias Harris was then asked about James Harden. And here is what Tobias Harris had to say via Kyle Neubeck on Twitter.
We're all grown men here, so we are, everybody understands the business of the game of basketball at this point. Personally, he doesn't have to address myself or anybody truthfully, but his participation, in my opinion, is addressing that he's here, and his attitude and energy today allowed everybody to understand that, he wants to go out here and compete with us and get stuff done. So, it's like, in my opinion, that's all really that matters is his energy and effort and towards myself and all the teammates. And, after today, we kind of understand. I mean, everybody already knew what time it is anyway. And, we just trying to figure ourselves out as a whole group.
He's here, and his attitude and energy allowed us to understand that he wants to go out there and compete with us. Well, I don't really agree with that. But what I do think is James Harden did, at least today, handle it like a professional. He showed up, did what he had to do finally, after his 4-month temper tantrum. And at least he didn't cause distractions, and he just stayed to himself and did what he had to do. It still must have been hella awkward for James Harden to show up and say, hey, guys, I'm here. And they're like, what are they supposed to say? Like, welcome back. Like, you opted into your contract. You opted into your contract, James. $35 million. And you know what the funniest part is how many people still on Twitter I see today trying to rationalize a grown man opting into $35 million. He decided to opt in and then throw a temper tantrum and wants to be traded, not in general, but to one team, and then threw another temper tantrum. People are trying to rationalize that. Like, that's normal behavior. Like, that's okay. Anybody listening into the stream right now could go to work, and if they were going to throw a temper tantrum, they'd probably get fired. And that's not for $35 million. I'm just saying. Sixers are going to have to put their foot down. They did a couple days ago. And so far, Harden is here. Hopefully, he can kind of build up some trade value. Because, again, this team's trying to compete, man. They are trying to compete. We go on to the next thing. Here's Tobias Harris. Little footage. Shout out to Austin Krell. Working on slipping high ball screens and cross actions. No dip on the catch. Quick release shooting. Little movement shooting from Tobias Harris. Tobias trying to find some spots. He's been asked to do a lot of different things during his Sixers career. He's going to have to be sharp, especially with this catch and shoot. That's what they're going to need. Tobias looks a little bit skinnier right there, in my opinion. And here's what Tobias Harris had to say in an interview with Kyle Neubeck yesterday, as the media were there talking to these guys. Actually, it was a couple days ago at Media Day. And here's what Tobias had to say about Nick Nurse's system. By the way, you'll see a common theme. A lot of guys are throwing shots at Doc Rivers. They think Nick Nurse and his creativity are going to very much improve this team. Quote, I think this is going to be a very good year of seeing a real offensive flow on the floor. And you can ask anybody in here. They are really excited for that. That's what Tobias Harris had to say about Nick Nurse. I mean, the amount of times that these players have, subtly or indirectly thrown shade at Doc Rivers. I mean, you lose count at some point. You lose count at some point because there's just so many instances this offseason. Like, these guys got sick and tired of running just a simple, plain offense with Doc Rivers. And yeah, I'm sure Tobias is happier because, he feels like he was never included. He was a fourth or fifth option. But anyway, let's hear from Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse comment today on James Harden. And he was asked after practice. Here's what Nick Nurse had to say.
It was really, really great. Now, I don't really know him anymore. So, really, our guys were super locked in. He just kind of took some questions from them. They were very good questions, and he gave them a lot. And, for me, it's like he's preaching hard work and really hard work and discipline, accountability, and all, kind of stuff that it was great to hear. And he was great. It was.
So Nick Nurse says that James Harden was preaching accountability, hard work, showed up, handled business. I don't know, man. I look at Nick Nurse. I think he's just sick and tired of talking about it. That's what I think. Look at his face, man. He's like, get out of my face. I don't want to hear anymore about James Harden. I don't feel like talking about him anymore. That's what that face right there is saying. He's like, let me do my job with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey and the rest of the crew. All right, I don't want to hear from you anymore. If James shows up, he's here, and if not, he's not. And then Nick Nurse talked about James's conditioning, maybe why he was sitting on the sideline under the basket when the starters were running some sets. And here's what he had to say about James Harden in an extended version.
You mentioned James obviously ramping up. What are kind of the next steps in that process for him over the next couple of days?
He looked good. That's what I want to say is he looked good. And I just think it's kind of like it's always in kind of coordination with strength and medical and the player, right, of how fast they're going to go get all the way through there. So it looked like it'd be too long. Like I said, he looked good, participated in the majority of it anyway, and he looked like physically in good shape.
Physically in good shape. That's what Nick Nurse has to say.
Did he address the team before practice and say anything like what his plans are? Does he plan on being here or have no conversations?
I did talk to him before practice, and
I talked to him before practice. Listen to this.
But then when that was over, it was right before practice. We went right in, and the whistle blew. And we got to work.
Do you think that's something that actually needs to be addressed with the team at this point, or?
Not really. No.
The expectation is going to be here going forward now, fully participate like today, or is that still unclear?
No, I think so, Tim. I think that he's here. He knows the schedule, right? And we expect him to be here.
He knows the schedule, and we expect him to be here. That is what Nick Nurse says about James Harden. They said, does he have to address the team? They asked Tobias Harris. He said, nah, he's a grown man. He can do what he wants. They asked Nick Nurse. He says, not really. I'm getting the feeling here, in my personal opinion, this is just my opinion, that there's no chance James is going to play in good spirit with this team. He came back, he did what he could, but, you know, we have to wait until October 26th where James goes out there against the Bucks. Like, is he going to chuck up 1 for 19? Is he going to actually try? We've seen different things with Rockets and Nets in past experiences. You know, he could show up today, but the fact of the matter is he said, I will never play for Daryl Morey again. He probably got a little bit of better agent advice than Ben Simmons did. Rather than, you know, crying about it and getting kicked out of practice, he just did what he could and went through the motions. But to me, it still doesn't feel like there is a connection there. Like Nick says, okay, like he's welcomed back into the team. You know, it's just like, he was another body there. He was another body there. That's what I'm getting from these press conferences. You know, he's dedicated to win. Like, that's the right thing to say. But it's not like, yeah. You know, if James Harden gravitated to the team and he came back and he said, you know what, man, which wouldn't happen, by the way. But if somehow, some way, he got out of his head and he came back and said, you know, I made a bad mistake publicly putting this out there like that. And Daryl and I have a long history and things got tangled up, but we will work, you know, to find a way to fix it. And I want to win with this team. I just want to win. That's the most important thing. Do you know how much that would do for his career? That would destroy a lot of the narratives out there. That would just garner a whole level of respect. He would probably win back a ton of the fan base, but he won't do that. You know, he's not going to do that. He's going to show up to practice, go through the motions while they still work on a trade. The thing that I have a problem is number one, you opted into the contract. Number two, you have a demand to be traded to one destination. One destination. That destination doesn't want to give up 1 first-round pick. They don't want to give up more than Terrence Mann and Robert Covington. Get out of here. You got to suit up and show your value. This team is trying to win. This team is trying to win. That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm getting, man. It's not fair that this team continually has to deal with stuff like this. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. Now, there was a report that came out today, actually more of an article, and Tim Bontemps, who asked one of the last questions there, he put out a bomb article, and I don't know, I found it very interesting, and shout out to Sean Bernard, my guy, who pulled out a couple quotes from this article. What do you guys think about this? Listen up carefully, because this is the first time we got some information like this. This is the first time we got some info like this. Listen to this quote. Number one. Over the past 48 hours, the Sixers had expressed hope and optimism that at some point the situation could be resolved. And then here's where it gets interesting. This from Woj as well. To that end, Harden on Friday was paid the 25% of his contract that he was scheduled to receive by Sunday, sources said, after already having received the 25% payment that he was scheduled to receive on July 1st. How do we feel about that? So similar to the Simmons thing, you know, where he wanted to get paid, and they said, if you don't show up, we're not doing that. You know, Daryl Morey said, we expect him to be there, and we'll see what happens. But apparently James Harden was already paid. He was already paid now 50% of the contract. So what does that mean? Is that why he showed up? Because he said, okay, I'm getting at least some of my money, and if I don't show up, they might take it away. Maybe that's why he pulled up on day 2. Maybe they said if you sit out a couple days, well, then you're going to start to get fined, or maybe you already got fined for missing media day. And he said, I don't want to lose another $50K. I'll show up. I'll show up. It is interesting, though, that even before on July 1st, Harden received part of his contract. And that is a little new nugget that we did not hear of. And it just reminds me a lot of the Ben Simmons situation. So let me know what you think about that. Now, we did get some other footage today of a couple guys shooting around. We got a bombshell of a quote from Daniel House, of all people, throwing shots at Doc Rivers. How about that? How about that? But before we get to that, I want to hear from you guys in the chat. I want to hear from you in the chat. What do you think about James Harden? Let me ask you this. Are you happy that he returned to practice today? Yes or no in the chat. Are you happy that James Harden showed up to Sixers training camp today? Do you think he's in good spirits? Do you think he has good intentions here? Do you think he actually will suit up for the Sixers and try to, provide some value to this team? What do you think about that? What's the next step here, right? Okay, you go through training camp this week. You figure that out. And then what? And then what? Because right now, apparently there's no value for Harden, right? Damian Lillard got moved. Clippers are really the only team willing to offer stuff up for James Harden, but it's not nearly enough in terms of what Daryl Morey expects. So it's getting interesting out here, man. Tell you that. Tell you that. Shout out to everybody in the chat, by the way. We got 400 plus in here, guys. Drop a like on the stream. Push this content out. We're dropping videos every day. We're going live. We're bringing you the content live and direct. DFJ in the chat says, I'm happy that James Harden showed up. These are the steps to building up trade value and getting him up out of here. So, a little like a building block in a way. A little bit of a building block in a way. Prolific in the chat says, our best option is that he balls out and then we get value at the trade deadline. I just don't think that's going to work, man. I don't see any way James is going to stick it out till half the season, and then the Sixers are going to say, oh, well, we got to move him at this point, Because at that point, the Sixers will probably have a decent record, etc. I just don't think that it's going to come to that. I think if he gets moved, it'll be very early on in the season. I think the way this whole thing has been handled is just absolutely nuts. I feel bad for the other players that have to kind of, deal with this situation. I mean, every day you got Maxey, Tobias, and B. They're just trying to get through the situation. I mean, they've been through it twice now, But then again, I think you have to have subsequent trade value. I think Morey's going to ask for a lot, but I don't think there's more than one or two offers out there. I don't think any other teams want James Harden right now. They're already settled in. They don't want to deal with that. This guy's been traded, multiple times. He's been unhappy in situations. They're not going to give up a lot to get James Harden, I don't think people want him as much as some people think. So it's going to get interesting, man. Let me ask you this. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being absolute positive 100%, 1 being 0%, what is the scale? What is the rating on a scale in your confidence level that James Harden begins the season on the Philadelphia 76ers? 10 being you're very confident that he will suit up on October 26th and he will be here in Philly. 1 being the lowest rating. He's not showing up. He's getting traded in the next couple weeks. Because honestly, I don't know. I think it all depends on how this plays out. I don't think he's going to talk to the media. I don't think he wants to talk to anybody. I think he'll show up the next couple days, though, for training camp. I wish they would talk to Joel Embiid. We haven't got one quote yet from Joel Embiid other than media day. So I don't know, man. It's going to get interesting. It's going to get interesting for sure. Give me your ratings in the chat. Again, 10 being you're very confident he will suit up and be here on October 26th. And a 1 being that he is not showing up Absolutely. Give me your thoughts. We got a couple 10s in the chat. 10 because he has no value. 3 because Daryl Morey is stubborn. 10 but mid-season. 10 because he has no options. 10 because he has no choice. That's crazy, man. Imagine him coming out on October 26th, getting booed. Man, it's going to be nuts. He's got a few chances here to kind of make things a little bit better, to take off some of the tension. But man, it is going to get interesting. Now, Daniel House said some interesting things about Nick Nurse, Doc Rivers. A couple of the other guys did as well. I want to look at some footage, and one guy's sniping threes, man. But before we jump into that, I got to tell you about our newest sponsor here of Philly Take with RB. Like I said, a former sponsor as well, but our newest sponsor, who we just locked in for the entire season. You guys got to check them out, man. It is BetUS. You guys got to check out BetUS, man. They actually have a James Harden bet on here in terms of, 1, where he will go next year, and 2, whether he's actually going to suit up or not. So I want to take a look at this, man. But shout out to BetUS. You can click the link in the chat right now or go down low to the description, and you can get a 125% sign-up bonus. So, for example, if you deposit $100, you can get $125 free to play with. Shout out to BetUS. They're reliable. They're secure. I'm cool with all the people over there. They're doing big things right now. And I use them personally, and they send me a lot of cool odds. But for example, right, if we go on to basketball and we go down, they actually have specials, right? You can literally bet on certain guys. So, for example, we click James Harden. Look at this right here. James Harden to be traded on or before November 15th. You can literally bet on that. -140 for yes, even for no. What do you guys think? Yes or no? James Harden to be traded on or before November 15th, 2023. Like I said, BetUS has some of the best odds, not just basketball, but football, baseball. The playoffs are on right now. You can bet on the Phillies, soccer, tennis. They have international sports, all that good stuff. They have player props. They have huge parlays. And like I said, they just have some of the best unique special bets here that you just can't find anywhere else. So I'm big on them. And again, if you click the link that I dropped or that is pinned in the chat or go down to the description, you can get a 125% sign-up bonus if you sign up with that link. What do you guys think? Yes or no? James Harden to be traded on or before November 15th. Drop a yes or no in the comments. I think I'm going with no. So like you can literally bet, for example, $25, boom, win $25, one click, easy as that. I don't think he's going to get traded before November 15th. I think he's going to be here. I really do, man. So once again, shout out to BetUS, man. Check them out. Click that link down below and shout out to them for partnering with us the entire season. Obviously, you want to support the show, but support the brands that invest into the show. Support us as creators as well, man. That's the best way to do it. All right, let's go back to Daniel House because he started throwing daggers, man. He started throwing daggers. Here's what Daniel House had to say. Shout out to PHLY who commented, who captured this. Listen to what Daniel House has to say about Doc Rivers versus Nick Nurse.
Obviously, it's very early, but how would you contrast the different types of concepts that you have with Doc versus Nick?
It's not early. I can tell you the difference now. I'm messing with you. I ain't gonna get into all that. But no, it's just a lot more selfless basketball. It's not so much of two guys having the ball.
It's a lot more selfless basketball. It's not two guys just having the ball. I mean, that's brutal honesty right there. I'm excited because I think Nick Nurse is going to make Joel Embiid more of a playmaker. He may not put up MVP numbers, but he may be a more efficient player. Nick Nurse is going to teach Embiid how to do a lot of the things to make him a well-rounded player. And I think that's huge, man.
Two guys, ball dominant. Nick Nurse is everybody play together. Everybody work for each other.
Everybody play together. Everybody work for each other.
Get your brother an open shot. So you can see the difference night and day.
Obviously, it's very early, but
so what do we think about that, man? I mean, Daniel House says that Nick Nurse, I mean, they're going to play a different style of basketball. Joel's not going to have 40 touches a night. He's not going to need to, because you're going to get Maxey involved with the ball a lot more. You're going to get everybody else involved more, Tobias, etc. So shout out to Dan House, man, keeping it real. Daniel House was also asked about Deion Sanders. If you guys didn't see last night, the Sixers met with Coach Prime. Nick Nurse set up some type of, I guess, dinner in Colorado, because that's where they're at. And they met with Deion. And House was asked about Deion saying he wants an Embiid-Jokic finals matchup and whether there were any exchanges about Jokic and being in the Nuggets territory. Quote, nah, MVP. That's all I'm going to say. MVP. Daniel House out here making it known, man, who the MVP is. Making it known who the MVP is. And by the way, I don't know if you guys saw this report, but the Philadelphia 76ers had to check in with the Denver Nuggets to get permission before holding a training camp in Colorado. It's no coincidence they chose to come to the same state where the Larry O'Brien resides, or for that matter, where the Nuggets big man Jokic staked his claim as the game's best player with his historic play during Denver's title run. As Nurse saw it, the physical and motivational benefits that came with this place made all sorts of sense. And once the Nuggets gave the blessing that was required by the league because of Fort Collins proximity, the Sixers' plan was set. I don't know how much to make out of this report, but I don't know. If the Sixers really had to check in with the Nuggets before doing a training camp, that's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. That's my thoughts. But yeah, I mean, they talked about it yesterday. If you go back and you look at the clips of Deion Sanders saying to Embiid, like, yo, I want to see you versus Jokic on the big stage. I want to see you head on, one-on-one. Shout out to Dan House, man. All right, let's look at a few more footage pieces here. We have day 2 at Sixers practice. Shout out to the lovely Lauren Rosen. Always grabs some great footage. Look at that. There's Maxey splashing some threes. You guys think Maxey has a chance of being an all-star this year? I really think Nick Nurse is going to utilize him night and day from last year. I've always said that Tyrese Maxey needs to run pick and rolls with Joel Embiid, with Tobias. I think he needs the ball in his hands. I think just giving him more of a role, an identified role, right? Because we would see Tyrese sometimes when James had an off night. We would see like a third quarter stretch where Tyrese Maxey would take over. You know, he would go for 15 points in the span of 5 minutes and he would just be unstoppable, right? But then the next night, it's like, where did Tyrese go? Then the next night, it's like, is Tyrese even on this team anymore? Same thing with Tobias. Same thing with whoever. Like, they need to get everybody involved. They need to get guys in rhythm and, you know, let them heat up. And that's kind of what Daniel House was talking about in terms of just, you know, it's not two-man basketball anymore. It's a whole team style. Same thing with what Tobias was saying, you know. Everybody's free flowing. Everybody's, you know, feeling it. They all feel like they have a role in the offense. And I think that will help this team out. Because when you look at the Nuggets, right, obviously Jokic was so dominant and Jamal Murray had a couple just crucial playoff performances that were historic. But when you think about the Nuggets, you think about that team won the championship, right? All the guys contributed in some way, right? You can think of every guy on the team, Michael Porter, KCP, Bruce Brown. You think about all these guys that helped chip into that chip. It wasn't just Jokic and Murray. And I think, it, you know, just being able to adapt to different roles and play on both sides of the ball, is something that needs to be preached. And I think Nick Nurse is a quality coach when it comes to that. It's not just a two-man game and the rest is gone. So that's where I'm at with it, man. And I think Maxey's going to be a big part of that. And PHLY puts this video, here's B-Ball Paul. What do you guys think about this jumper? B-Ball Paul, I mean, he's knocking it down. Looks a little bit better. I wouldn't say it's anything near polished yet, but it does look a little better. At least it's a little more fluent. Still pushing from the chest, a little bit low of a release. But you know, Paul Reed's going to have a role in this team. I think we're going to see a lot more of those like hustle type plays, especially on defense. I think Nick Nurse is going to try to switch everything. I was watching an interview with Kyle Neubeck and Rich Hoffman where they asked Nick Nurse a couple days ago, like, what is the plan for the defensive strategy in terms of switching? Joel Embiid always gets caught in drop coverage. He's big, he's slow. Like, what is your plan with that? You know, Nick Nurse likes to switch everything. And he just said, you know, there's a lot of ways to win. We're going to figure out what works best. And I think that's a good thing. Nick Nurse has constantly preached since he got here, you know, it's not going to look the same day 1 as maybe day 13 or day 25. We're going to have to switch things up. We're going to have to try different things and then go with what works. So I think that's perfect for training camp. I think you iron out some of the things like that and you come up with the best game plan for your team. The Sixers have been way too lazy defensively. They've been lazy rebounding the ball for years. Nobody's ever got on their tail. I think you have to be that type of player to play in a Nick Nurse system. So it's interesting, man. It really is. But obviously, again, the big news of the day, James Harden returning back to practice. And I think it's a start in the right direction. I think it's a start in the right direction, but there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go. You got to figure out what the plan is for this team because you don't want James Harden in running with the ones if he's going to get traded in a couple weeks. You don't want him getting traded in a couple weeks and, you know, you're running him with the ones and then it's a completely different way of playing basketball. And you know, James Harden's style of ball has never fit with the way Nick Nurse coaches, which obviously is an odd thing to even have him here then. I mean, he would have to play completely different from what he is used to. He would have to play completely different from what he is used to. Sylvester says this is going to be a defensive team. I hope so. It would be nice. It would be nice to kind of establish that identity, you know, as a defensive team. It would be nice for once. But as of right now, man, the Sixers are just drama-filled. At least I will give James Harden credit for not coming back and being a distraction. I would love to hear him talk to the media if he agrees not to, you know, burn a bunch of bridges. Don't know if he ever will, but at least now, you know, he could come back. You have pictures that make it look like he's in shape. Other teams out there will probably look at it and say, okay, you know, maybe we'll take a flyer on him. Hopefully he continues to build that value up, man. Young in the chat says this stream is dead anyway. Well, we're here at 5:45 on a Tuesday with 400 people in the chat. So I don't know what your definition of dead is, man, but people will always tune into this content because I give it to you live and direct, right? This isn't me sitting up here with a suit trying to be a reporter. No, I'm giving you the coverage. I'm giving you the reactions, the analysis, all the clips that you need. And you're sitting out there typing on a keyboard, drinking a fat Pepsi, probably eating a bag of Doritos. All right, let's be honest. Let's be honest. We're out here living, man. We're ready to cover this team all year. Good, bad, intermediate, mediocre, drama-filled, boring. It doesn't matter. The people will tune in because this type of content is taking over, man. Not just this channel, in general. I know a bunch of content creators that literally provide the news for their team. They provide the news for their team, man. They provide the news. Like, my guy, I know like 4 people off the top of my head. They're like, yeah, people literally come to me to break down the news of this team. I have no credential. I have no media credential. I've built a whole platform by just putting in the work, man. So that's where we're at, man. The people keep tuning in. I mean, there's nothing much to talk about yet, but we still got 400 people in here hanging out with your boy. Steve says, how do people hop in the chat to be toxic? It's funny, man. It's the same people that constantly do it. It's like they really don't have better things to do. I talk about it with other creators all the time. It's funny to me because I'm out here. I'm living my life, man. I'm here living the dream a little bit. And the content's only going to ramp up. We're going to be covering every game. We're going to be dropping videos like we do every day. We're going to be keeping up with this story. I can't wait, man. It's a good time in Philly sports right now. Naheem, shout out to you in the chat, man. Philly Sports Hustle says, go Phillies. Guys, it's Red October, man. I was pumped up last night. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter, aka X, I would definitely recommend you do so. I'm out there tweeting during the Phillies games. Having fun, man. Maidenless says, it's the same trolls that were here trolling during the regular season. They're here. They've been here for 5 years, man. They've been here for 5 years. They have nothing better to do. At the end of the day, man, we just keep growing. That's all we can do. That's all we can do, man. What do you think of George Niang, says Rooney? I think George Niang will be a bigger loss than people anticipate. He was constantly attacked and, hated on. He obviously had his deficiencies, but he was a great locker room guy. He brought toughness. And let's be honest, when a lot of guys on his team didn't want to take the big shot, he never hesitated. And he would get into these certain stretches. Of course, he was very slow and probably a liability defensively, but man, he could shoot. He could shoot, and I think he'll be a big loss if other guys on his bench don't step up. Just being honest, man. Master TV, what's up, man? Derek says, where do you think the Sixers will place this year? I'm thinking 4th or 5th. Yeah, if I had to predict coming into the season, I mean, a lot can happen. It's hard for me to say that without knowing, what's going to happen with James Harden. But I would probably say right now, based on how the East is shaping out, I think it could be anywhere from 3rd to 8th, and I think it would probably be around 4 or 5. But again, maybe they get more talent, maybe they make a trade, and maybe, Nick Nurse has this team balling out, man. Or maybe they go the other way and they collapse. I don't know. Got to wait and see, man. Benjamin says, yesterday, RB was like, it would be great if he shows up. Yeah, I did. I did say that. I think it would be a step in the right direction, and I think it is. Because I think that the Sixers either have to trade him, and this is probably a better way to help that out by at least letting teams see, okay, he looks a little bit skinny. Okay, he's going to at least handle his business. So this is at least a step in the right direction. So that's where I'm at, man. DFJ with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much, man. Says you put in the work for real. If there's a Mount Rushmore of Philly creators, you're definitely top 2, but not 2. Man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. That deserves a little sound effect. Let's go, man. DFJ, thank you for that. Look, man, we're bringing this content to another level. All right, we're going full time on this content now. Like I said, we just locked in a deal with BetUS for the entire season. We are here live and direct. Any news drops, you know where to pull up. We got big things in store. Big things in store, man. I can't even spill it yet, but we got big things coming. One thing I will tell you is that sometime soon we got some merch on the way. So be on the lookout. Let's go. And for the people that have been here from day 1, 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, 2 years, whatever. Maybe you just joined on the train yesterday. I appreciate you, man. You guys telling your friends, telling your family about this content, helping me push it out, supporting on all platforms, on Instagram, on Twitter, YouTube, etc. I appreciate all the support, man. I see it. So anyway, man, that is where we are at. I'm rambling, but look, man, Sixers are going to have an interesting rest of the week, and then preseason begins. We'll be covering the preseason games. Regular season starts in 20 days. Decisions to be made, man. We will see how it plays out. Hit the like on the stream, guys. We still got 350 people in here. We still got 350 people in here. We should have 350 likes on the chat. Subscribe if you're new, man. Ring the bell. James Harden back at Sixers practice. We'll be dropping videos the rest of the week, but I wanted to go live today because I felt that this was a very, very interesting development in the puzzle piece, man. So, look, and somebody was asking me, are you going to be covering the games, like doing the live games? Hell yeah, man. We're going to be here during every game. We're probably going to be doing post-game stuff. A lot on the way. A lot on the way. Thank you all for being here. And once again, guys, check out BetUS. I will drop the link one more time. Again, you can get a 125% sign-up bonus. They are investing in us for the entire year. So if you want to help support their brand, man. I'm going to go place a parlay right now on tonight's game with the Phillies. So go check them out, man. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Once again, Philly Take with RB. Drop a like. You know the drill, man. We'll have to see how this plays out, man. But James Harden's finally back in the building. He's finally back in the building. The question is, how much effort will the Sixers get? Will he integrate himself back in? Will he be a Sixer in 22 days? We'll have to wait and find out. Appreciate you all. I will catch you on the next one. And go Phillies. Peace.